There are 7.125 billion people in the world, a growth rate of 1.2% annual change. Life expectancy is 70.78 years. With an ever-growing number of mouths to feed, it is no surprise that 805 million people in the world do not have enough to eat in order to live a healthy lifestyle. Soon, streets like these will become overpopulated, and the people on it will become underfed. It is therefore vital that we start to educate people on overpopulation and sustainable sources of food. We need to introduce the concept of meat-free options and the benefits that this can have, not only on health, but also on environment. It is therefore vital that we introduce people to different sources of food. One study called this the nudge and looked at motivating sustainable food choices. Giving people different choices results in people becoming open-minded and more likely to take up alternative options.
Food production can be made more sustainable by changing how and where crops are grown. In 2007, more than half the world's population lived in cities. This is set to increase to 80% by 2050. Therefore, growing crops in urban areas will be more sustainable as it will reduce food miles, which in turn will decrease CO2 emissions and the impact of the food industry on climate change. Urban agriculture is the growth of food in cities so that it's close to urban consumers. This can be incorporated on a city-wide scale, as seen in Shanghai, where 60% of vegetables and 90% of eggs are produced within the city. In Montreal, urban agriculture is a community-based project with 97 community plots that also function as green spaces for people to meet. One of the most innovative ways of having urban agriculture is vertical farming within buildings. This involves the growing of food in tall buildings with crops stacked one above another and grown using aeroponics. This is the growth of plants in air with a nutrient-rich mist. This maximises the amount of food that can be grown in a small space, which is a major problem when feeding a large population. It also decreases the amount of water that is wasted, which will be helping water sustainability in the future. As the crops are grown indoors, it eliminates the factors of disease and environment, so this technique could be used in any environment. However, as LED lights and a constant temperature of 21 degrees C are required for optimal growth, it may not be able to function inside developing countries as it's very expensive. To make food production more sustainable, it is important to minimise the effect of agriculture on biodiversity, especially in hotspots such as the tropical rainforest, which contains 5% of all the species diversity on the planet. With vast areas of these rainforests undergoing deforestation to grow crops such as palm oil, the solution to food sustainability must address this issue. Research has shown that forest species have a greater level of abundance in oil palm rather than pasture. Therefore, to increase biodiversity, this land could be better managed and pasture converted into cropland, increasing the biodiversity and stopping more deforestation for new crops to be planted.
Population growth can be beneficial to a certain extent, but with the population predicted to reach 9.6 billion in 2050, the Earth may be considered to be overpopulated. Overpopulation has many negative effects across all different aspects of life. For example, finding housing to accommodate the vast number of people will become a major issue. This will result in an increase in the value of land, which will affect the poorer section of the community and create an abundance of substandard housing or homelessness. But issues like that are not the top concerns of overpopulation. The main issues will be the access to needed resources such as food and clean water. We will see more and more people using unsanitary sources of food and water, which will lead to an increase in disease and famine. If these issues are not attended to, then they can spread through entire populations. The lack of access to food can also come from the large waste output per person. Management of food waste becomes a lot harder the more people you have. So 2 ways of feeding a population of 9.6 billion would be to either find new ways to produce more food, or to reduce the amount of food we waste.
Changing people's perceptions and altering their viewpoints takes time, as preconceived ideas and perceptions on how and what they should eat is strongly embedded in culture and society. Therefore, we need to promote alternative sources and actively voice these to the general public, perhaps through means of advertisement or through promoting meat-free sources of food through menus. We need to start with people, and we need to start now. 7.125 billion people and growing.